poor girl cleaned the wrong mansion by mistake, and the billionaire owner fell madly in love. The Los Angeles sky was heavy with the scent of late summer smog and jasmine. In a narrow, sunburned corner of East LA, Maria Luna tied her dark curls into a ponytail with trembling fingers. Her shoes were worn, her shirt was secondhand, and her backpack held little more than a granola bar, a mini Bible, and her youngest sister's hospital documents. She glanced at her phone. A text blinked from a cleaning agency she'd just signed up for. New client in Beverly Hills. 11 a.m. Address 7912 Belhas Drive. Maria whispered a short prayer, kissed the photo of her mother pinned to the inside of her backpack, and hurried down the cracked sidewalk. She never imagined that one wrong turn would shift the axis of her life forever. Beverly Hills was a different planet. Gated mansions with imported stone facades, security cameras on every corner, and the scent of old money thick in the air. Maria's heart raced as she compared the house numbers. 7908, 7910, 7912. A palatial white estate stood before her, wrapped in silence. Marble lions guarded the entrance. The gate was open. She clutched her supplies and stepped inside. The air inside the mansion was cool and perfumed with vanilla and something sharper, something like wealth. She called out timidly, "Hello? Cleaning service?" No answer. Nervous but determined, Maria placed her bag down and got to work. Her hands moved with the grace of someone who had cleaned all her life, from diners to motels to downtown law firms. She dusted antique vases, vacuumed a velvet chaise lounge, and began polishing a glass staircase that spiraled up like a piece of art. She had just stepped into the kitchen when a deep, male voice struck like thunder. "What the hell are you doing in my house?" She froze. Her blood drained from her face. Standing at the entrance of the kitchen was Alexander Xander Blackwell, barefoot in gray joggers, shirtless and furious. His hair was still damp from a shower, his blue eyes narrowing into cold slits. I'm here to clean," Maria stammered. He stepped closer, the power in his presence enough to knock the breath from her lungs. "I didn't hire anyone. And if this is some elaborate scam, I swear to God, no. I work for Sunshine Clean. They texted me this address." He snatched her phone from her hand before she could stop him. His expression changed as he read the message, but his tone didn't soften. "This isn't Sunshine Clean's client. That's my mother's company. She hasn't lived here in years. This is my house." Maria's eyes widened. "I'm so sorry. I must have made a mistake. Please, I didn't mean." "Drop the act," he said, voice like frost. "You show up unannounced, no badge, no contract, and start snooping around my home." She looked at him then, really looked. Not at the expensive watch on his wrist or the scar along his jaw, but at the shadows in his eyes. Eyes that had known pain. Eyes that didn't trust. "I wasn't snooping," she said quietly. "I was trying to make enough money to keep my sister alive." He faltered for a split second. Maria backed toward the door, throat tight. "I'll leave. I didn't mean to intrude." Xander said nothing as she slipped past him, cheeks burning with humiliation, her dignity cracking like thin porcelain. That night, Maria took 2 buses home. Her little sister, Camila, sat curled in bed, oxygen tube in her nose and coloring books spread around her. Their tiny apartment smelled of vapor rub and instant noodles. "How did it go?" Camila asked with hopeful eyes. "It was big," Maria lied with a smile. She made soup and promised herself never to cry in front of Camila. But as soon as her sister fell asleep, Maria sat in the dark bathroom and sobbed into a towel. Her hands still smelled of lemon polish. Meanwhile, in his sterile, gleaming kitchen, Xander poured himself a whiskey and stared at the untouched wine glass across the table. He hadn't drunk with someone in that room in years. He remembered the look in her eyes, the quiver in her voice. Something about that girl unsettled him, not because she lied, but because she hadn't. Her pain had been raw, familiar. Xander didn't believe in accidents, but something about her felt like fate. The next morning, Maria received a text. "Client has requested your return." Same address, same time. She stared at the message, heart pounding. It had to be a mistake, but her sister needed her. She packed her bag again and whispered, "Diosito, help me." Maria stood outside the Blackwell mansion once again, her heart hammering in her chest. The weight of what had happened the day before, the humiliation, the anger, The way Xander had looked at her like she was both a threat and a mystery clung to her like the humidity in the air. She should have stayed away. But Camila's medicine wasn't going to pay for itself, and the agency had insisted the client requested her personally. It made no sense. Still, there she was again, standing at the iron gate of the mansion that had made her feel small, exposed, and strangely alive. The gate opened with a soft mechanical groan. She stepped inside, wondering if he would yell at her again, or worse, ignore her completely. But when she entered the house, silence wrapped around her like a blanket soaked in tension. The grand foyer was exactly as she remembered. Marble floors that seemed to stretch for miles, gold-trimmed mirrors that reflected a version of herself she didn't recognize. She took a deep breath and began cleaning. She dusted with precision, trying to block out the memory of his voice, his sharp tone, the way his blue eyes had pierced her like blades. But no matter how hard she scrubbed, she couldn't wipe away the feeling that something was watching her. She turned a corner and froze. Xander stood at the edge of the staircase, dressed in a crisp white button-down shirt and tailored slacks, coffee in hand. His expression unreadable. "You came back." Maria swallowed hard. "They said you asked for me." He didn't answer right away. He sipped his coffee, then leaned against the banister like a statue carved in expensive stone. "I didn't ask for you," he said finally. "But I didn't cancel either." Her brow furrowed. "Then why let me come?" A long pause. "Because I'm curious," he said, his voice lower now. "Most people, when I tell them to get out, they never come back. But you walked in here like you had nothing left to lose." Maria's hands tightened around the rag in her palm. "I don't." He raised an eyebrow. "My sister," she whispered. "She's sick, and I need this job." The words hung in the air between them. For the first time, Xander's eyes softened. Not much, but just enough that Maria noticed. He turned and walked away. "You can clean the upstairs today," he said over his shoulder. "Stay out of my office." And with that, he was gone. Maria exhaled slowly, her body trembling with a mix of anger, confusion, and something she dared not name. Upstairs, Maria entered a room that looked like it belonged in a European palace. The walls were lined with first-edition books, and oil paintings loomed from every corner. In the middle of it all was a grand piano. She ran her fingers along the keys, just once, letting the soft note echo through the emptiness. Downstairs, Xander heard the sound. He froze mid-call. The note hit him like a memory, like a scar opening beneath his skin. As days passed, a strange routine began. Each morning, Maria arrived with her cleaning supplies. And each morning, Xander watched her without saying much. Sometimes, he asked her questions. Small things. "Where are you from? Why'd you take this job? Why do you never complain?" And Maria, guarded but honest, answered, "I'm from East LA. I've been working since I was 12. Because complaining doesn't change anything." Their conversations were short, sharp, like broken pieces of glass, fragile, dangerous, real. And somehow, in that silence, something bloomed. But Maria was too busy worrying about Camila to notice. Her sister's condition was worsening. The bills were piling. The heart surgery her doctors recommended cost more than Maria could earn in 3 lifetimes. One night, Maria stayed late at the mansion. The storm outside had turned violent, rain pouring like grief, thunder shaking the glass walls. She was finishing the floors in the main hallway when the power went out. The entire mansion plunged into darkness. She gasped. A moment later, a soft glow lit the space behind her. Xander stood in the doorway, holding a flashlight. The light cut across his face, highlighting the scar on his jaw, the tension in his shoulders. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice unusually gentle. "I don't like storms," Maria admitted, ashamed. "I know," he said. She looked up, confused. "I read your agency file. Said you lost your mother during a hurricane in Mexico. You were 8. She didn't reply. He stepped closer, the flashlight now illuminating both their faces. "I lost someone in a storm too." Maria didn't ask who. She could feel it, the way his voice broke, the sadness he kept buried like a secret. For a moment, it felt like they were both children again, frightened, scarred, alone. The thunder cracked again. Maria trembled. He reached for her hand. And for the first time since her mother died, Maria didn't feel like she had to be strong. She just let herself be held. The next morning, Maria left before sunrise. She needed to get to the pharmacy, to Camila's school, to her second job at the diner. As she stepped onto the sidewalk, a sleek black car pulled up beside her. The window rolled down. It was Xander. "You shouldn't be walking alone," he said. "I've been walking alone my whole life," she replied. He looked at her for a long moment. "You don't have to," he said quietly. Then he drove away. At the diner, Maria barely made it through her shift. Her feet ached. Her hands were raw. She fought to stay awake. The manager yelled at her for dropping a tray of dishes. On her break, she checked her phone. A single notification. $10,000 had been deposited into her account. She froze. A message followed. For Camila. No strings. Xander. She stared at the screen in disbelief. Her hands shook. What kind of man does this? What did he expect? What did she want? She didn't know anymore. That night, she walked into Camila's room and found her asleep, cheeks flushed, whispering something in a dream. Maria crawled into bed beside her and cried. Xander stood in front of the mirror in his penthouse suite, the skyline behind him like a painting. He stared at his reflection and didn't recognize the man looking back. He poured himself a drink, but didn't take a sip. His mind was on Maria, on her strength, on her eyes, and the way she didn't flinch around him. He didn't know what she was doing to him. He only knew he didn't want it to stop. The sun was setting behind the Los Angeles skyline, bathing the mansion in golden light, but the warmth didn't reach Maria Luna's chest. Not today. Not after the look Xander gave her when she showed up that morning, softer than before, but laced with something unspoken, something dangerous. She had never wanted anything from him but a paycheck and a silent room to clean. But now, with each glance, each accidental touch of a shoulder, her heart betrayed her a little more. She was starting to like him, and that scared her more than anything. He was too high above her, too unreachable. He was a man who didn't belong in her world, and she had no place in his. And yet, something between them kept drawing them together like fire to dry leaves. But fire spread, and this one had already caught someone's attention. Miles away, in a penthouse overlooking the city, Savannah Cross sat curled on a white leather chaise, scrolling through her phone with an arched brow and a half-smile, the kind of viper wears before it strikes. She'd seen the headlines. Tech billionaire spotted with mystery woman. Who is the Latina cleaning his mansion? And his heart? Savannah threw the phone onto the glass table with a smirk. Oh, Xander. Still trying to fix your broken parts with new toys? Across from her sat a woman wrapped in gray silk and secrets. Judith Blackwell, Xander's mother. Her posture was perfect, her tone sharper than champagne glass. I assume you called me here for more than your usual whining, Judith said, crossing her legs. Savannah poured herself a drink. He's seeing someone. Some maid. Judith's lips twitched. Not quite a smile. Not quite a frown. So he's repeating the same mistake his father made, she said coldly. Falling for a woman with no pedigree, no future, and no understanding of her place. Savannah leaned in. This girl isn't like the others, Judith. She's sweet, sincere, and she's cleaning his house. Judith's voice was ice. Then we scrub her out. They clinked glasses. Deal sealed. Back at the mansion, Maria knelt by the fireplace, scrubbing ash from marble, her hands red and raw. She didn't see Xander watching from the hallway, something soft in his eyes. He stepped forward. Why are you still doing this? She looked up, startled. It's my job. You don't have to. She straightened her back. Yes, I do. Silence settled between them. A delicate moment. Then Xander said something unexpected. I want to take you somewhere. Maria blinked. Where? Someplace quiet. Just dinner. She opened her mouth to object, but he added quickly, not as my maid. As Maria. 1,000 voices screamed in her mind, saying no, warning her, reminding her who she was, where she came from. But her heart answered first. Okay. That evening, she stood in front of a full-length mirror in the guest bathroom, wearing the only dress she owned that didn't have a stain. Her reflection didn't look like someone going to dinner with a billionaire. It looked like a girl who had taken too many hits and kept walking anyway. Xander appeared at the door moments later in a charcoal suit, no tie. He looked at her like she was a sunrise he wasn't expecting. You look, he cleared his throat. Beautiful. She smiled, small and unsure. So do you. They drove in silence, the city lights flickering through the windows. He took her to a quiet Italian place on the edge of the hills. No paparazzi, no eyes, just wine, soft music, and candles that melted like time. For 2 hours, they talked. About music, books, pain, family. regret. He told her about his father's suicide, the guilt, the legacy, the hole it left in him. She told him about Camila, her mother's death, her father's arrest. When she said her father's name, Xander froze, but said nothing. The moment passed, and when he walked her to her door, not the mansion, but her real home in East LA, he leaned in like he wanted to kiss her. She hesitated, but she didn't pull away. Their lips met, soft, tender, and full of every unspoken thing they were both too afraid to say. The next morning, Savannah arrived at the mansion, unannounced, uninvited, and dressed to kill in white silk and red lipstick. The butler stammered as she swept past him. "Miss Cross, Mr. Blackwell isn't expecting, he never is," she said with a wink. She found Maria in the hallway, dusting the baseboards. Their eyes met like a thunderclap. Savannah tilted her head, smiling like a queen about to deliver a public execution. "You must be the maid." Maria stood, her heart thudding. Savannah stepped closer. "Sweetheart, let me give you some advice. When a man like Xander flirts with a girl like you, it's not love. It's boredom, or pity, or both." "I don't want your advice," Maria said, steel in her voice. Savannah laughed. "You will, especially when this little Cinderella story turns into a courtroom tragedy." She left with a slow smile, knowing she'd planted the first seed of doubt. That night, Maria tossed in bed. Her heart said Xander was different, but her instincts, sharpened by years of survival, said danger was coming, and it had arrived wearing silk. It was raining in Los Angeles, a rare, weeping kind of rain that felt like a curse disguised as a blessing. The sky was gray. The streets were wet with memory. Inside the tiny apartment in East LA, Maria Luna sat cross-legged on the floor of her mother's old bedroom. The room hadn't been touched since the funeral, untouched in the way you leave places sacred, frozen, untouchable. Camila had been asleep when Maria tiptoed in, driven by an invisible force she didn't understand. A box had been tucked away in the back of the closet, sealed in red ribbon. Maria had never opened it, never dared. But now, something told her it was time. With trembling hands, she cut the ribbon. Inside, she found an envelope, aged, yellowing, thick with dust and time. On it, written in her mother's elegant cursive, "To my daughter, when she is old enough to know the truth." Her breath hitched. Her chest tightened. Her fingers shook as she pulled out the letter and began to read. "Me, Maria, if you are reading this, then the truth can no longer be hidden. You deserve to know everything. About your father, about the Blackwells, about the reason we lost everything." Maria's heart began to pound, each sentence peeling back another layer of the life she thought she knew. "Your father, Santiago Luna, was a brilliant software engineer. He was offered a job by Blackwell Industries, the company owned by Judith and her husband, Charles. What your father didn't know was that they wanted to steal his work. They framed him for corporate espionage and had him arrested. They paid off the judge. We lost everything. I tried to protect you and your sister. I tried to move on. But your father was deported back to Mexico, and I died with him that day. Only my body stayed here. I know this letter will break your heart, but you deserve to know who you are. You are not poor. You are not unworthy. You are the daughter of a man who was brilliant, who was innocent, who was destroyed by people who wear silk smiles and sharpen their knives in the dark. And if one day you ever find yourself in their world, remember who you are." Maria couldn't breathe. Tears poured down her cheeks in silence. Xander, Judith, the Blackwells. She had fallen in love with the son of the woman who had destroyed her father, who had ruined her family, who had turned their lives into dust. She stood up, letter clutched in her hand like a weapon. Outside, the rain continued to fall, but inside her, a storm had just begun. Back at the mansion, Xander sat in his office, staring at his computer screen without seeing it. He hadn't heard from Maria all day. She hadn't answered his texts. Something felt wrong. He picked up his phone. One message. "We need to talk. Tomorrow. In person." His heart dropped. He didn't know it yet, but the woman he was falling for had just found out everything. The next day, Maria arrived at the mansion not in her uniform, but in jeans, a plain black blouse, and her mother's silver cross necklace, the one she hadn't worn since the funeral. Xander met her in the garden. The sun was bright, but there was no warmth in the air between them. "You said we needed to talk," he said. She looked him in the eyes. Her voice was steady, but her soul was trembling. "Did you know what your mother did to my father?" Xander blinked. What are you talking about? She handed him the letter. He read in silence, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief to horror. No, he said finally. This isn't possible. I didn't know. I swear, Maria, I didn't. But she did. Maria cut in. Your mother destroyed him. My father was innocent. He was a man who loved his family. He never stole anything. She framed him. And because of that, I grew up without him. I lost everything. Xander reached for her hand. She stepped back. I didn't know, he repeated, pain in his voice now. Please believe me. I don't know what to believe anymore. She turned to leave. He called after her. Maria, I love you. She stopped, slowly turned back. And I love my father, she said, tears now breaking through. But loving someone doesn't make their sins disappear. She walked away. And Xander, for the first time in years, didn't know how to fix anything. That night, Maria lay beside Camila, her arms wrapped around her baby sister like armor. Camila whispered in the dark, Why are you crying? Maria kissed her forehead. Because I found something I thought was beautiful, and it turned into a wound. Camila held her hand, and Maria cried until the sun came up. Meanwhile, across town, Judith stood on a balcony, watching the skyline, sipping wine. Savannah appeared beside her. She knows, Savannah said. Judith didn't blink. It was bound to happen. Savannah smirked. What now? Judith turned to her, her eyes cold and perfect. Now, we make sure she never speaks. The ocean stretched across the horizon, silent and infinite, like the kind of peace Maria hadn't known in years. Xander's beach house was isolated from the noise of the city, and for a brief, trembling moment, it felt like they were the only two people in the world. She stood barefoot on the wooden deck, wind brushing her hair into a dark halo. Behind her, Xander watched from the sliding glass doors, a soft smile on his lips, the kind he never wore for anyone else. They hadn't spoken much since the confrontation about her father. There were no easy words for the ache that lingered between them. But after weeks of silence, one message from Xander had been enough. I don't expect forgiveness, but I still want to know you, the real you. And Maria had come, cautiously, quietly, telling herself it was just for one night, just to talk, just to breathe. But hearts never play by the rules. By the time the sun began to set, their silences had grown warmer, their words gentler. Xander made pasta from scratch. Maria told him about Camila's first word. He told her about the time he snuck out of boarding school to watch the stars. They laughed. They remembered. And later that night, wrapped in the soft cotton sheets of his bed, they kissed like people who had nothing left to lose. No promises. No future. Just now. And it was enough. For a moment. But the world, cruel and constant, came knocking at dawn. Across town, Savannah Cross sat in a black SUV parked near the beach house, her red lipstick perfect, her phone recording every second through a zoom lens. Her assistant leaned over her shoulder, jaw tight. She actually spent the night. Savannah's smile didn't reach her eyes. Good, she said, because now the world will finally see what kind of woman she is. The tabloids hit the next morning. From maid to mistress? Tech billionaire spotted with Latina housekeeper in beach love nest. Who was Maria Luna? The gold digger who stole Xander Blackwell's heart photos. Close-ups. Rumors. Lies. By noon, Maria's phone had exploded with messages. Hate. Threats. Even photos of Camila from school, taken without permission. She sat on the floor of her tiny apartment, phone in hand, her face blank. Her sister cried from the bedroom, overwhelmed by it all. Maria didn't cry. Not yet. She couldn't. At Blackwell headquarters, Xander stormed into the boardroom, the tabloids crumpled in his fist. Find out who leaked this. Now. His assistant swallowed hard. Sir, it was Savannah. She's not hiding it. He froze. Of course it was her. He should have known. Meanwhile, Judith Blackwell stood at a private salon downtown, watching the news break across every screen. Her lips curled. I told him, she murmured to her reflection. You never mix silk with rags. At the hospital, Maria waited in the pediatric ward, clutching Camila's hand, trying to hold it together. But whispers followed her like shadows. Nurses stared. Parents murmured. Even the doctor avoided her eyes. When he finally spoke, it was with a coldness that shattered her. I'm sorry, Ms. Luna. Due to recent public concern and donor backlash, Camila's scheduled surgery has been postponed. What? Maria stood, her voice shaking. You can't do that. She's on the list. She's next. I suggest you explore other options. Privately. But I can't afford it. He didn't respond. He just walked away. That night, Maria stood alone outside the hospital, cold wind biting her cheeks. And for the first time, she let herself cry in public. Not because of the scandal, not because of the lies, but because her sister was being punished for her love. Xander found her there, after hours of searching. He got out of the car and ran to her, soaking in the sight of her under the fluorescent lights, small and strong and breaking. I'm fixing it, he said. The surgery, the press, Savannah, all of it. I'll burn it all down for you. She shook her head. I don't need you to burn anything, she whispered. I need you to understand what it cost me to love you. He touched her face. I do. She pulled away. You think money can fix this? That it can erase what people say about me? What they say about my sister? I worked my whole life to be invisible, Xander, and now the whole world sees me as a joke. You're not a joke. You're the bravest person I've ever met. But that doesn't matter, she cried, finally losing the last thread of calm. Because in your world, courage isn't enough. You have to be born in the right house, wear the right dress, have the right last name. And I'll never be that woman. Xander's jaw clenched. I don't want that woman. But I do, she said softly. Because maybe then, Camila wouldn't be suffering. Silence. He looked at her, and for the first time, realized he was not the hero of her story. She turned and walked away. Maria stood outside the hospital for hours, eyes hollow, hands trembling. Camila's surgery had been denied. Again. And now, a stranger in a white suit was waiting for her near the parking lot. Miss Luna, he asked. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her pain spoke louder than her voice. He handed her a letter, sealed in red wax. No name. No return address. She opened it slowly. And what she read would haunt her forever. Camila's life depends on you walking away from Alexander Blackwell. One word to him, and the surgery is gone. Permanently. Make your choice. Today. She stumbled back, clutching the paper to her chest. Was it real? A trick? But inside, she already knew. Because only one woman in the world had the cruelty to turn a child's heart into a bargaining chip. Savannah Cross. Maria walked into Camila's room that afternoon like a ghost. Her sister smiled, even with tubes in her nose. You look tired, Camila whispered. Maria knelt beside her, brushing her hair back gently. I'm okay. Camila grinned. Xander came to see me yesterday. He brought me a pink bear. He said he was going to marry you one day. Maria's throat closed. Don't believe everything people say. Camila pouted. But I like him. I know, Maria said, tears building. I like him too. That night, Maria didn't sleep. She watched the city lights flicker outside her window and felt the weight of her mother's letter still burning in her drawer. The past was one wound. But this was a blade pressed to her sister's future. She thought of telling Xander, of running to him, begging for help. But what if they were serious? What if he tried to fight them and Camila paid the price? Maria had lost too much already. She wouldn't lose her baby sister too. The next morning, she went to the Blackwell mansion one last time. She wore black. She didn't cry. She found Xander in the garden, seated beneath the olive trees where they first kissed. He stood as soon as he saw her. I've been trying to call you. Maria, what's going on? I'm fixing it. I pulled Camila's files myself. She's getting the surgery, I swear. I'm leaving you, she said, voice cold, eyes dead. Xander froze. What? I should have never gotten involved with you. It was a mistake. This was all a mistake. He stared at her, stunned. Where is this coming from? He asked, stepping toward her. Is this because of what happened in the media? Because I'll fix that too. She held up a hand. You can't fix who I am. You never could. His voice broke. Don't do this. She blinked hard. I used you, she lied. I needed help for Camila, and you were convenient. That's all. His face shattered. You don't mean that. She turned away, but not fast enough to hide the single tear running down her cheek. I do. And she walked away. Camila's surgery was scheduled the next day. The doctors called it a miracle. Maria sat in the waiting room for 9 hours, not moving, not eating, barely breathing. When the surgeon finally came out and said, she's stable, Maria collapsed into a chair and wept like a mother who had survived the unthinkable. But joy couldn't erase the cost. She'd traded her heart for her sister's life, and she knew it would never grow back the same. Elsewhere, Xander drowned in silence. He didn't eat, didn't speak, didn't work. just stared at the spot where she once stood, playing their last conversation over and over in his mind like a broken record. She used me. He whispered to himself at 3 a.m., she never loved me. But even as he said the words, something in him screamed they weren't true. And that made it worse. Across the city, Savannah toasted to her victory. Darling, she told Judith Blackwell over champagne, she's gone. For good. Judith didn't smile. She sipped her drink and looked out the window. There's something about that girl, Judith murmured. She doesn't disappear. She endures. Savannah rolled her eyes. You sound scared. Judith's voice turned sharp. You should be. 3 weeks passed. Camila recovered slowly. Her color returned. Her voice grew stronger. But Maria? She grew quieter. The light behind her eyes never came back. One night, as she folded Camila's laundry, her phone buzzed. A message from a blocked number. A video. She clicked it, and what she saw stole the air from her lungs. It was Savannah, in a hospital hallway, talking to Camila's doctor. Tell her if she doesn't leave him, we pull the surgery. Got it. The video ended. The truth, finally visible. But now it was too late. Xander hated her. The world still mocked her. And her heart had been turned to ashes. It had been 33 days since Maria disappeared, and every single one of them had been hell. Xander Blackwell stared at the bottom of a glass he hadn't bothered to refill in hours. His Beverly Hills penthouse, once pristine and glowing, now sat in ruin. Half-drawn curtains, a whiskey bottle tipped on its side, a broken vase still on the floor from a night he didn't even remember. He hadn't gone to work in a week. His assistant, his board, his lawyers, they had all tried calling. He ignored them all. He didn't care about Blackwell Industries. He didn't care about public image. He didn't care about anything anymore. Because the only thing he wanted to believe, that Maria loved him, had been shattered. Used me, he muttered to the empty room. She used me. But even as he said it, the words tasted wrong, like poison he was forcing himself to swallow. Across town, in a rundown diner off the 5 freeway, Maria Luna wiped ketchup off a cracked tabletop with trembling hands. Her hair was tied back under a cheap cap. Her name tag read Laura. She hadn't been Maria in over a month. Camila was recovering well. She was laughing again, eating, even drawing pictures of the pink bear Xander gave her. But Maria was fading. Each day felt like a performance. Each customer was a pair of eyes she couldn't trust. She didn't watch TV, didn't use her phone. Her only lifeline to the world was Camila. And even Camila noticed. You don't smile anymore, she said one night, curled up beside Maria in their new apartment. Not even when I tell you my jokes. Maria kissed her forehead, tears threatening. My heart's just tired, Mija. Camila looked up. Is it Xander's fault? Maria didn't answer. She just held her tighter. Meanwhile, Blackwell Industries was bleeding. Judith Blackwell stood before the board in a crimson silk suit, trying to hide the panic behind her glossed lips. Our numbers are solid, she said. It's a temporary dip. The media storm will pass. But the room was silent. Because the truth was, the media storm hadn't passed. It had only just begun. Investors were pulling out. Whispers of corruption were leaking. Someone inside the company was feeding evidence to journalists. Secret lawsuits, hidden settlements, offshore accounts, and all roads led back to Judith. She slammed her office door that night, trembling for the first time in years. You little girl, she hissed to the mirror. You think you can touch me? She didn't say Maria's name, but she didn't have to. The next day, Xander stumbled into the company lobby, eyes bloodshot, shirt wrinkled, silence following him like a funeral march. Everyone stared. He ignored them. He took the elevator to the top floor. The doors opened. Judith stood waiting. You look like hell, she said. Good, he replied. I came to talk. Her eyes narrowed. About what? About Maria. About Savannah. About you. She froze. Get out of this building before you embarrass yourself, she snapped. Xander didn't move. She left me. And I believed everything you wanted me to believe. That she was after my money. That she manipulated me. But none of it felt right. Judith's jaw tensed. I found the hospital footage, he said. She turned pale. I saw Savannah threatening Camila's doctor. You knew. Silence. You knew she was being blackmailed. And you let me hate her. Judith poured herself a drink. She was never right for you, Xander. And you never were right for this world, he whispered. He turned to leave. Where are you going? He looked back over his shoulder. To fix what's left of my soul. That night, Savannah found a box outside her hotel room. Inside, the same footage she had tried to bury. And a note. Tick, tick, tick. Enjoy the silence. It won't last. She dropped the box, her perfect nails trembling. Back at the diner, Maria closed the register and sat alone in the back room, staring at the wall. Then her phone buzzed. One message. Unknown number. I know what you did for your sister. I know everything. Meet me. Tomorrow. Griffith Park. Noon. No name. But she knew. It was him. It had been almost 6 months. 6 months since Maria Luna disappeared. 6 months since her name stopped trending. Since the media stopped calling her a gold digger, a manipulator, a maid who played queen. 6 months since she had spoken to Xander Blackwell. And now, on a crisp spring morning in downtown Los Angeles, Maria stepped out of a black town car wearing a navy blue designer dress, a sleek coat, and the quiet, dangerous confidence of a woman who had nothing left to lose and everything to take back. Flashing cameras blinked like lightning across her face. Reporters gasped. Is that? No way, she's back. Maria didn't speak. She didn't need to. The world would listen soon enough. A week earlier, in a small law office just outside Santa Barbara, Maria had signed the final document confirming her as the legal heir to the Luna estate, the fortune her late aunt had been fighting for in court for over 10 years. It was money her family never got to enjoy, land that had been stolen, stock options hidden, profits forged. But now it was hers, and she wouldn't use it to live quietly. She would use it to make sure no one ever destroyed a Luna again. Meanwhile, at Blackwell Industries, chaos reigned. Judith's court hearings had begun. The board was in disarray, and investors were panicking. Xander, newly returned from weeks of emotional seclusion, stepped into the building to find tension buzzing like electricity. The first person he saw was his assistant, Michael, holding a tablet with trembling hands. Sir, you need to see this. Xander looked. There she was, Maria, walking into the Los Angeles Art Museum. Graceful, poised, alive. Xander's breath caught in his chest. And then, the press release dropped. Maria Luna, daughter of wrongfully convicted engineer Santiago Luna, has acquired full ownership of 47% of Lunatech Solutions, now restructured under the name Luna Global. This company was built with my father's stolen ideas. I'm not here to ask for justice. I'm here to be justice. Maria Luna that night, Xander drove to the top of Mulholland Drive, the same road he once took her down in silence during a much simpler time. He parked the car and stared at the city below, remembering her laughter, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about Camila. He had ruined everything, and now she was untouchable. He wasn't sure if he wanted to beg her forgiveness or fall at her feet. The next morning, Maria arrived at a charity benefit for women entrepreneurs. All eyes turned. She was elegance, fire, purpose. She spoke on stage for just 2 minutes, but they were enough to silence the entire ballroom. I was once a girl who scrubbed floors in a house that didn't want me. Now I build doors for other women to walk through. We are no one's mates. We are our own legacy. The room erupted in applause. Judith, watching from her penthouse in silence, turned off the TV. She thinks she's won, she said. Savannah, beside her, drained her champagne. She has, and it's going to kill you. Later that week, Maria was at home, brushing Camila's hair, when her assistant entered the room with wide eyes. There's someone here to see you, she said. Maria looked up. Who? The assistant hesitated. It's him. Maria's heart paused, just for a second. Then she stood and walked to the door. Xander was waiting in her garden. He looked older, softer, wounded. When he saw her, he took a step forward, but stopped himself. You came back, he said. I didn't think you'd notice, she replied, folding her arms. His eyes filled with something fragile. I never stopped noticing. Silence stretched between them like a bridge made of glass. I read your statement, he said. You were incredible. She nodded. Why are you here, Xander? He swallowed hard. Because I need to tell you the truth. About what? Everything. About Savannah. About my mother. About how I failed you when I believed a lie instead of fighting for the truth. Her voice was still. You believed I didn't love you. I believed you hated me. That I had become everything your mother warned you about. And now, she asked. Now I know I was the coward. You were the hero. His voice cracked. I'm not here to ask for anything. I just needed you to know that. She stared at him, and for the first time, he saw tears in her eyes. not from pain, but from the unbearable weight of being seen. "I needed to hear that," she whispered. Then she turned and left him standing among her roses. The night of the charity gala arrived like a storm dressed in diamonds. Every corner of the Beverly Hilton glistened under chandeliers, and the city's wealthiest buzzed through the grand ballroom, sipping champagne, fake smiling, talking about stock, art, and legacy. And none of them had any idea they were about to witness history. Judith Blackwell, regal in silver satin, stood near the center of the room, camera ready, surrounded by press and power. Her carefully rehearsed speech was printed in her clutch, her smile fixed like marble. She was here to announce the launch of the Blackwell Initiative, a charity for justice reform. The irony was delicious. Xander stood on the sidelines, dressed in black. He had shown up for one reason: to see how far his mother would go to rewrite her crimes into philanthropy. But then, she walked in. Maria Luna. The room stilled. The air stopped. She was wearing a crimson gown that looked like fire stitched into silk. Her hair was swept up, exposing the scar above her collarbone, the one she got trying to clean a chandelier in the wrong mansion. Beside her, Camila, proud, glowing, holding her sister's hand like a flower grips the sun. All eyes turned. All mouths whispered, "Is that her? She's back. She has no shame. She looks like royalty." Xander's breath caught. He had never seen her like this. Not from across a ballroom, not untouchable. But her eyes weren't on him. They were on the stage. On Judith. The music faded. Judith tapped the microphone. "Good evening," she began. "Tonight, we gather in honor of justice, legacy, and change." Stop. One word. One voice. One earthquake. Judith's eyes snapped to the entrance. And there was Maria, stepping toward the stage, heels echoing across polished floors. The crowd gasped. Some clapped. Some didn't know what to do. "Ms. Luna," a guard tried to intercept. "I wouldn't do that," said a calm, female voice behind him. Maria's lawyer aunt, holding a thick folder labeled "Confidential Federal Evidence." Judith's face paled. Xander took a step forward, but Maria had already reached the podium. She turned to the crowd. "My name is Maria Luna, daughter of Santiago Luna, a man your beloved Judith Blackwell had falsely accused, deported, and erased from this country. A man whose ideas built the very foundation of this empire." A ripple of whispers ran through the room. Judith moved to grab the mic, but Maria held up a hand. "I have the letters, the documents, the patents, the forged testimonies, everything you buried to protect your legacy. But tonight, that legacy ends." A screen behind her lit up. Photos, letters, voice recordings. One played, Judith's voice, years ago. "No one will ever believe a poor immigrant over a Blackwell." Silence. Then gasps. A man from the press dropped his wine glass. Another began filming on Instagram Live. And then, a woman in the crowd began to clap, followed by another, then another. And suddenly the ballroom thundered with applause. Judith stood frozen. Her mouth trembled. Her eyes darted to the exits. She had never looked so small. Cameras turned to her like vipers. Then, flashing red and blue, federal agents entered. Quiet, calm, official. "Judith Blackwell," said one. "You are under arrest for fraud, perjury, and obstruction of justice." Her voice cracked. You can't do this." Maria stepped down from the podium, walked over, and whispered, "I just did." Judith was led away. No one stopped her. Savannah? Gone. The board? Speechless. Xander? Motionless. Outside, under the night sky, Maria and Camila stood on the marble steps of the hotel. "You were amazing," Camila said, squeezing her hand. Maria smiled. "He's free now, Mija. Papa is finally free." Behind them, Xander approached. Quiet, uncertain. Maria turned to face him. "You did it," he said, voice soft. "You brought down everything." "I didn't want revenge," she said. "I wanted truth." He stepped closer. "And now?" She paused. Her voice shook. "Now I want peace." He nodded. "Then, do you still love me?" She blinked. Once. Twice. "Love doesn't just die," she whispered. "But sometimes it hides, especially when it's been bruised too much." Xander's voice cracked. "I never stopped believing in you, even when I was too afraid to say it." "I know," she said, "and part of me never stopped loving you either. But I need time." He nodded again. "Then I'll wait, even if it takes forever." He turned to leave, but she stopped him. Xander. He turned back. Thank you for finally listening. And then she walked away, hand in hand with Camila, toward the car waiting at the curb. She didn't need music, or roses, or applause. She had her name back. She had her father's honor back. She had her dignity. And for now, that was everything. Big Bear Lake was silent. The trees were still. Snow lined the pine needles like lace on a forgotten dress. And inside a small, stone cabin at the edge of the forest, Alexander Blackwell sat in front of a dying fire, alone. The man who once commanded boardrooms now wore wool sweaters and unshaven regret. He hadn't touched a tablet, a phone, or a screen in over a month. He chopped wood. He cooked his own meals. He read books without titles, mostly poetry and history. He wrote letters he never sent. To Maria. Always Maria. He had replayed her voice in his mind so many times he no longer trusted his own memory. But what haunted him more than her absence was the realization that he had never deserved her, and somehow still hoped for her anyway. Maria stood on the snowy road, boots deep in powder, staring at the cabin like it might vanish if she blinked too fast. Camila had convinced her. You don't have to forgive him, Mari, she'd said. But maybe you need to hear him out. Maybe your heart needs to know the truth, even if your mind already made its decision. Now here she was, holding a letter in her coat pocket she would never send. A goodbye she didn't know if she'd have to say. 1,000 memories swirling like the snowflakes dancing around her. She knocked once, then again. Then the door opened. Xander. His eyes locked onto hers. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. They sat by the fireplace. No words. Just 2 mugs of coffee that went cold untouched. Maria finally spoke. Her voice was soft, gentle, measured. You disappeared. I had to, he said, looking into the fire. I wasn't a man you could trust. I had to stop pretending I was. She stared at him, the quiet pain in his features, the weight in his shoulders. He looked older, but more real, more human. I hated you, she whispered. For so long. I hated me too. Silence again. Then, I watched you at the gala, he said. I stayed until the end, even when you didn't look at me once. I was afraid, she said. Afraid I'd see what I still wanted. His hands trembled slightly. I'm not the man I was in that mansion, he said. I'm not rich anymore. I gave up the company. The press thinks I lost everything. She turned toward him. And did you? He looked at her, really looked at her. I only lost you. A long pause. Then Maria reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Do you know what this is? She asked. He took it, unfolded it. It was one of the letters he had written and never sent. She must have found it in her mailbox, or maybe Camila intercepted it. Maybe fate did. He read it silently. It said, I once thought love was a transaction, that people were investments. But you taught me love is a surrender. You taught me to lose without shame. And that's why I'll never stop loving you, even if all I ever get is your silence. He looked up, tears in his eyes. You weren't supposed to read that. She smiled faintly. And yet I did. She stood, walked to the window. The snow was falling harder now. You hurt me, Xander. I know. You doubted me. I did. You let your mother ruin my life. I failed you. He stood behind her, close enough to feel her breath fogging the glass. But I never stopped loving you, he whispered. She turned, and for the first time in almost a year, she let herself look at him like he was still hers. And what if I'm still broken? She asked. Then let me love you in pieces. Her breath caught. She touched his cheek, and then she kissed him. Soft, slow, healing. A kiss that didn't ask for forever, just for today. They spent the night talking, wrapped in blankets, laughing, crying, reopening every wound with gentleness. They didn't sleep together. Not yet. It wasn't time. But when dawn crept through the window, Maria lay her head on Xander's chest. And he whispered, You gave me my soul back. And she whispered back, You were never supposed to keep mine. The Malibu hillside glowed like heaven had bent down to kiss the earth. Rows of string lights twinkled like fallen stars draped between olive trees. White roses bloomed along the aisle, planted by Maria herself. The scent of jasmine lingered on the breeze. A full moon hung like a silent blessing over the ocean. It was not the grand ballroom of the Blackwells. It was not the cathedral of wealth. It was a garden, a sacred place between sky and sea, where 2 souls would finally, fully return to each other. Maria stood in front of the mirror, her breath catching. Her wedding dress was simple, A-line, cream lace, handmade by a seamstress from her childhood neighborhood in East LA. Her hair was down. A single silver pin held the veil her mother once wore. She touched the photo tucked into her bouquet, her parents smiling, eternal. "You'd be proud of her," whispered a soft voice behind her. Maria turned. Camila, in a lavender dress, holding two small flower crowns, one for herself and one for her sister. "I'm nervous," Maria whispered. Camila smiled. "Don't be. You're going home." Xander stood beneath the wooden archway lined with white calla lilies. His suit was navy. His eyes were wet. His hands trembled only slightly. He looked nothing like the man he was. He looked full, real. He glanced around the intimate circle of guests. No business partners. No press managers. No board members. Only people who mattered. Camila, Michael, his assistant, Maria's aunt, her childhood friend Rosa, even the old woman from the diner who had once offered Maria her last cup of coffee. And then, music. Guitar strings, slow and haunting, began to play a version of Besame Mucho. Everyone stood, and there she was, Maria Luna, walking barefoot on the soft grass, her dress brushing rose petals. Her eyes locked on his. Every step was a vow. Every breath was a surrender. Camila walked ahead, scattering petals with careful, proud hands. Then she turned and held out her arm, and Maria took it. Together, they walked the final steps. Together, forever. When Maria stood across from Xander, the night fell silent. No priest, no officiant, just them. She spoke first. "I once thought love was meant to save me, that it would come riding in like a fairy tale. But you didn't save me, Xander. You saw me, all of me, even when I didn't want to be seen." A tear rolled down his cheek. "You loved me when I was still a maid, and you still believed the worst. That matters, because when everything fell apart, what I remembered most was your hand reaching for mine." He exhaled. "I don't want to be perfect," he said. "I just want to be yours, the way you've always been mine, even when we didn't know it." They placed rings on each other's fingers. No diamonds, no fanfare, only warmth, only truth. When they kissed, it wasn't a kiss for the cameras. It was slow, private, sacred, and as applause filled the garden, Camila clapped loudest of all. Maria pulled her into the embrace, and for the first time in a long time, there were no more secrets, no more battles, no more silk-clad enemies in the shadows. Only love, only family, only peace. Later, as they danced under the stars, no DJ, just a record player humming a bolero, Xander whispered in Maria's ear, "You once told me you cleaned the wrong house." She smiled, laying her head on his shoulder. "I did," she said. He leaned down, voice trembling. "But I was the right man." Maria looked up, tears sparkling. "You were the only man." They kissed again, and the world, for the first time, finally felt quiet. The camera pans upward. The music swells. The stars shimmer above them. And the final line, spoken in Maria's voiceover. "When I stepped into that mansion, I thought I was lost. But sometimes, the wrong door leads you to the right forever." Cue final song. Solo 2, Cambias Mi Mundo. Fade to black. Roll credits. If this story touched your heart, made you cry, or left you screaming at the screen, we want to hear from you. Tell us in the comments what part broke you the most or healed you. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more unforgettable love stories, and share it with someone who believes in second chances. Your support keeps these novellas alive and more dramatic than ever.